I fixed or figured out what was broken with Jason's grand help. We figured out what was wrong with our app. Yay! The Octadex browser.
Oh, okay. From earlier.
Yes, from earlier.
There's two Humble bundles with like coding books. There's another one called Learn Use Some Code.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with a bunch of books from No Starch Press.
Those are good too.
Yeah.
Those are good too. Yeah. The head first ones I think are good because they're really geared towards really beginners. So those are good starts. Okay, code. Cool. So just to remind ourselves, like this is where we were earlier with our cat app, and we could what's going on? Did we not yarn? Oh yeah, so here we are with our cats, right? And we could like click on a particular cat and have it work, except like as we clicked around, the links were changing, but nothing was happening, except when we reloaded the page. We figured out what it was. So in our app, we have this master router, and this router surrounds this switch, so it surrounds our home and our cat HQ. But then I made the mistake in the cat HQ of having another router, and that router only surrounds the cat info, not the clouder. God, saying router and clouder together, that's a tongue twister. So what we want is we just want one router to surround everything, because it's that router that recognizes the links and the routes. So the mistake was we actually don't need this router.
You want to report on routers?
We just need the router around the app. So this router surrounds the switch, which encompasses the home page and the cat HQ, and that router is still active here because this is inside of it. Now that we have this switch here, now when we click through and go to Scubato Cat and Mona Lovelace and this, now the URL is changing and the router is picking up on the fact that we changed the link.
Cool.
Right. So that router was like doing the routing inside of itself, but it wasn't reflecting the entire page. So that was the mistake there. So now our app does what it's supposed to do. Cool. So what I thought we would do is maybe let's make another example of this that's a way simpler example, just so we have one simple example out of the way. Just kind of thinking about it, I think what we need is like one simple example of how React Router works. That's separate from like dealing with APIs and clicking on things and pulling data and rendering things. So what I want to do is just make a simple router example. And I think this will help. So let me first fix this issue. And then let's make another app. Simple router. And we'll try and keep this one simple enough that if you all want to code along with this, you're welcome to. I'm not going to make this like with data and state and blah. We're just going to make a very simple, like, let's click on something and have the interface change. And then if we have time, maybe we'll play with one list. Or we're going to be talking about router tomorrow as well. Yes. Hey, it's 2:18, and we just got an update from the... This is a test of the National Wireless Emergency Service. No action is needed, except I now have to swipe it off of my phone. So that's an action.
Lawsuit.
Sue. It is the American way.
Liar. Liar. I did have to take an action. Yeah. And all of our phones just buzzed.
Super emotional.
Yes. Hey, they did imagine. Just know how much electricity that just used on all these phones everywhere in the country. You just drained my battery by 0.0001%.
That's quantifiable.
It is. It is. All right. So let's just make a new React app. Simple router.
Is this thing recording?
It is recording.
Oh, cool. All right.
So let's code dot. And let's yarn start. So let's make a super simple demo, because I think React Router is hard enough to understand without adding all the state stuff we did this morning. So I'm glad we did that demo, but let's also, oh come on computer. Yeah.
What?
Okay. Node and cool. So here's our React app. Let's make something super simple. So let's get rid of all this stuff. Here, let's do this. Let's have kind of like the demo. Let's have a home page, an about page, and a pictures page. Let's do that. So we're gonna have a home page, an about page, and a photos page. So we were gonna do this in a normal thing. We might just start laying out right. We might lay out what those individual parts are gonna look like. So maybe the about us just has about us, and maybe it has a UL, an LI, Tony, Gavin, Jason, Mark, Catherine, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all of us, right? All right, so here's our About Us page. Then let's make another div for the photos. And let's just make that a list of pictures. And let's go to Unsplash. Unsplash. This is my favorite site for free photos because they've got like amazing pictures. This one, ice cream solves everything. It certainly does. So does anybody know that across the street at the Welcome Center they have ice cream for sale? Does everybody know that? It's like
I did know that, but I
$2.15.
forgot about it.
Oh my god. And it's
the LGBT Welcome Center across the street.
yes. Yes. And it's reasonably priced.
Is it good ice cream?
Yeah, it's a Working Cow. And Working Cow ice cream is good ice cream. And it's like one scoop is like $2.50 and 2 scoops is like 3 something. It's really good.
That's awesome.
So let's grab a couple. Let's just grab a couple of photos in here. Cool. Copy image. Right? So let's just put a couple images. Let's just put 2 images on this page. And then let's just shrink them down with CSS. All right, so we're not going to do a whole lot of styling, but let's take ULs and let's take the list style none. And let's take images and let's make their widths like 200 pixels. Cool. So here's our 2 pages, our about us and our photos. Right there's just an online. Oh, and let's have one more. Let's have one more div that's home. Cool. So here's our 3 pages, just kind of splattered out onto the main page. Right, we want these to be on separate pages, so let's make components for each of them. So let's make a home.js, let's make an about.js, and let's make a photos.js. Whoa, what did I do? I think I made those folders somehow. Let's undo that.
Second icon.
Did I? I click this and that makes a folder, doesn't it? Home.js, cool. What did I say? Home.js, about.js, and finally photos. So I'm used to like tools when you make a new thing. If you just type in a name, it makes it a file, and if you put a slash on the end, it makes it a directory. Okay, learn something new about code every day. Let's go in here and, you know what, I'm finally going to install that extension.
I can tell you what it's called in just a second.
It's like Simple React.
Simple React Snippets is exactly what it is.
Simple React Snippets. Apparently I have it.
Yeah, remember you were trying to do that one day with all of us and it wasn't working?
Right, because I'm in Vim mode. Oh.
Existential crisis.
I am having an existential crisis. It's like a choice. Do I like keep Vim or do I use the extensions?
What are the benefits of Vim?
So like Keycaster here at the bottom of the screen. You're gonna.
Oh, is it gonna show what
yes.
keys you're getting? Oh, well,
yeah.
That's cool.
So, is Keycaster still going yet? So this is I'm navigating with J. So navigation in Vim is HJKL. So H moves me left, and L moves me right, and J moves me down, and K moves me up. So with 4 keys on the home row, I can navigate anywhere I want to go.
With barely any movement.
Right, with barely any movement. So I'm not touching the mouse. I'm just moving up, down, up, down, up, down. Right.
Like you when you have to type with letters.
So when I want to, so right now I'm in command mode in my editor, which means that things that I type like Shift V highlights a line, right? But I'm in visual select mode now. So now if I do J, I'm selecting down. If I do 4 J's, that's 4 lines down, right? So if you are a person who knows like chords, right? So it's a very chorded based thing. So I know a couple of you are musicians.
Yeah.
So like 4 down means take the 4 and modify the down by doing it down 4 times. So it's commands that you then modify with other commands, right? So I like to think of it that way. So if I want to now get out of navigation mode and insert mode, I hit the letter I, and now I'm in insert mode. Now when I type J's, I'm typing real J's and K's and L's.
So how do you get back to that?
Escape. Now do you know why Vim people hate the touch bar? Because it's no longer a real key. So a lot of us will map the caps lock key to escape. So that way, it's also on the home row. So if you're a pure home row typer, you just reach over with your pinky. So for instance, I'll give you an example. If I wanted to change all of this text, there's a change key called C, right? And that will let me change text. But see what it did? It changed to the end of the line. So C says, hey, you're now in change mode. And if I type, if I change and I start typing, right, it's changing what I'm typing. But if I type like capital C, that's changed to the end of the line. But I can also change inside a tag, right? But if I also had some quotes here, I got a little change inside the quotes. So C is for change, I is for inside. Then I have to tell what thing am I changing inside. Am I changing inside the quotes or changing inside the tag? So you sort of have like this little mini programming language that's in your editor. So you essentially program the text you're typing. So when you see me like text is highlighting and cutting and moving, that's all me.
I was wondering how in the hell you were doing
That's all me running, essentially running commands in my editor, right? So I'm so used to, and then undo is U for undo, right? So I'm so used to being able to say like Shift V 5J or 4J, and then D for delete, and then P for paste, right? So I'm so used to these keys that like I've got that muscle memory now of all of these commands that I can do in my editor, and that's how I'm super efficient. Could I learn and be just as efficient in code? Absolutely. All the things that I'm doing here, one can do in code. It's a different set of keys, and it's a different philosophy of the editor. I have just trained myself to be a Vim type person. What's nice for me is Vim is Vim is Vim everywhere I go.
Right.
If you learn code, and then later on, like, man, code isn't the cool thing anymore. You know, Facebook has their own editor, and it's awesome. You should all switch, and everyone's switching to that. It's new keys. Vim has been Vim since the 70s, right? The keys have not changed since the 70s, and that, like, for some people that's awesome, and for some people like, whoa, like you are using an editor from the 70s. What is wrong with you? But for me, I love it. So here's
Do you
like,
think that's worth learning where we are? At this
no.
point?
So here's my thing about Vim. So I've seen a lot of people try and use Vim. Here is how you learn Vim. You get good at your current editor. You go get a job. You work on your job, and then one day you decide, I'm going to become a Vim person. And here's what you have to do. You either have to like give up code and just use plain Vim, or turn Vim mode on in code or Atom, wherever you are, and never turn it off. You have to go cold turkey.
Yeah.
You have to throw yourself directly into Vim, and like no matter if your boss is screaming at you or like all Vim is doing is beeping at you, right? Like you got to stay in it, because if you live half in Vim, half in something else, you'll never get the discipline and the muscle memory that it requires to get efficient in Vim. So if you do that, you'll know Vim, like Jason knows Vim, but he's not efficient at it because he's never dedicated himself to it, right? So he's like more efficient in Atom and he's knowledgeable of Vim, but no amount of like practice that way is going to get him efficient in Vim. You've just got to go cold turkey. And some students have done it and they love it. Some students have tried it and be like, nope, that's not for me. If you want to give it a try, there's Vim Adventure. So Vim Adventure is a little online game that will teach you the Vim shortcuts. So like while you're a student, play with this and figure out whether or not Vim is something that you like. Like play with it and be like that kind of editing pleases my brain. And what I suggest you do is like when you're not doing all of this, like in 8 weeks, when you're not also trying to learn all this other stuff, right? And you're like applying for jobs or you've got a job, like then go throw yourself into Vim, right? But the way you do it is, I need to write code, I'm going to write code with Vim.
Wow. Can you remap Vim's keybinds?
You can, but I would suggest you don't. And here's why.
Every time you find yourself in a new Vim environment or whatever, you have to redo all of it.
Yes. So the nice thing about Vim is Vim is Vim is Vim. So remember, like my story of editors was I was a TextMate user, and then TextMate was going to get updated, and then they never updated it, and then I switched to Sublime Text, and then Sublime Text 2, and then TextMate 2 came out. I tried it, and I was like, no, it's not any better. Then was it Sublime Text? No, I changed to something else, and then Sublime Text came out, and I was like, hey, it's cross-platform. It works on Linux, and it works on the Mac. And at the time, I was switching several times a day between my Mac and a virtual machine on my Mac that was running Linux. I was like, cool, I can use the same editor in both places. But the keys are slightly different. Like when I try and use Justin's computer, I keep going for where the command key is, because that's where my brain tells me to put my finger. Right? And your experience is having done this switch, right?
It took me a solid day, and after that it's fine.
It was the same for me with
yes.
the switch.
But now, imagine making that switch 8 times a day. Right? My brain just couldn't do it. So like, I'm out. I'm done. Like, I'm going back to a text-to-based editor, which is where I learned things the first time, like way back in college. I used a text-based editor. Like, oh, Vim. Like, I'll finally learn Vim. And I just threw myself into Vim. And after like a month, I was like, cool, I'm never going back. But I won't remap the keys because I want to be able to walk up to anybody's plain Vim and have those keys work. Right? So I want to walk up to a server, right, and be like, Gavin, you've got to edit the password file on the server to get everybody back in. And if all I know are like my keys in Vim, when I boot up Vim on that machine that doesn't have my key bindings, I'm lost. So, but people will load Vim with all kinds of super macros and whatnot. That's fine. I don't do that because I want to know how to do it with core basic Vim. So now I'm lost because like I want to be able to come into this home thing and do I am RC. But I think what's going on is like the tab is being interpreted by Vim, not by the plugin. So I think what I can do is I am RC React. Oh, it's not here. Command Shift P. Command Shift P. React. Class the class name. Yeah, the disable them. Okay, well, I can do that. So I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to turn this off. Stop casting. Okay.
Keycast or something you install or something?
It's something I installed. Yeah. So let's make a home page. Oh, so sad. Export default home. This is a home component. Let's just make these components and use them. So here's a home component. And we have a photos component. Photos component and an about component. So here's a neat thing about Vim. Like I just did change CI inside W word, and that will take the current word both left and right, and let me type in about. When I come down here to photos, I can hit the dot key to repeat that command. So it'll repeat the last command that I did, right? So kind of like your command D, I can then just look for all of the instances and hit dot to repeat that command. Even if that command was like, highlight the word, change it to uppercase, and do another thing, I can just repeat that sequence of commands on all the other things.
How far back in that root step?
One command. It's the very last command that I
Okay,
did.
the strokes of how the command will be
Right.
executed.
Yeah. So if I do like, if I do change CT until the paren, the bracket, foo, and hit escape, that was the command. The command was change until a bracket. This is the text that I typed, and command. Now if I come down here and hit dot, it will do that again. And I hit dot, and it will do it again, but there was no bracket. Dot, and do it again, right? So it remembers the entire command, which is change until this character, and wait for what I type, escape to end. That's the entire command. I think you can also say, like, go back 5 commands and repeat that last 5th command, but I don't have to do that. But all those things are possible because Vim is quite expansive. But it's awesome. It's
How long
awesome.
did it take you to learn?
To get like the core things down to a part where like it was muscle memory and I felt as efficient as I was from the editor that I came from, probably about a month. For like staying in it all the time. That's why I say like
Writing how many hours of code a day though?
8 hours solid a day.
Okay.
Like
Alright.
writing code all day, every day, until I was like, okay, finally I don't. And then even today, like I'll do things like this. So I want to go to the top of the file, or I want to go to where the about is. I want to move my cursor from that T to the C in class. I will do up, 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 and then 0 to go to the home. So 0 goes to the beginning of the line, and $sign goes to the end. What I should do as a Vimmer is I should say go to line 3, or 3 go. I should type 3GG to go to line 3. Right. So like what I'll do is after a while I'll be like, oh, you know, I'm typing one key too many times, like up, 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 up. I need to practice jumping lines. Right. Some people even change their line numbers here to be relative. So it won't go 1, 2, 3. It'll go -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And as you move, the 0 tracks, and the other lines are minus. Because you can
so
say
you're always at 0.
your line is always 0. Rather than be line 1 through 10, mine would now say, this would be line 0, line 1, line 2, line 3, line -1, -2, because my brain could say, I want to go to where class is, that's -3, go. Or go 3 lines up. So I'll know to do 3 up, or 4 down, right? But like,
Oh, so you
I'm not
don't
that.
put the line name, like
Right.
the number of the line.
I could do 3 GG for go, or 10 GG for go. But what some people will do is like, oh, I want to go where class is. That is 5 lines up. So they'll do 5J. Sorry, 5K. They'll do 5K. Right?
Okay.
Go 5 lines up. So to help them with that, they'll renumber their sidebar numbers to be relative rather than absolute. Brain explodes. Like, I'm not at that level of Vim mastery, but I want to get there. Someday. So let's just have this have what our home component is, which is just a div with home. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to this and I'm doing Shift V to copy it. So I'm doing Shift V down. Here's another thing. If I do Shift V, I should be able to hit the %. Yeah, see, it's not doing it. Shift V, I should be able to do the %, and that will select until the matching brace. So if I was in a real Vim, better than this one, I would be able to do %. It would jump me down there and automatically select that. So this is our about. Let's paste this in here. Finally, let's grab the photos, which is all of this, and let's paste that in here. So now that we have these components, we can use them in our, so this is home, Right. Oh, we have to import them. Import home from home. Import about from about. And my inefficiency in this is I probably haven't done enough configuration of Vim mode in VS Code to have it be what I want it to be. So we should now be able to do home, about, and photos. And if we delete all of this, I'll leave the first div in here. Right. Kind of nothing has changed, except class name equals app. Right. This is essentially the same. Now these things are inside of our page. So this is where React Router comes in. We want it to be that when we're on slash, we're on home. We're on slash about, we're on the about us page. And when we're on photos, we're on the photos page. So this is where we yarn add React Router DOM. So we'll add React Router DOM to our project. This will let us wrap these 3 components in a router and let us choose which of these components to put in this spot based on the URL. Cool. So I never remember what these imports are. So let's go back to
How do you add the React?
yarn add React Router DOM. Yarn add React-Router-DOM. So React Router DOM has as one of its dependencies React Router, but you need React Router DOM anyway. So rather we just import something that gives us the entire bundle. You could just also do React Router. It would give you almost everything that you need. And then this little boilerplate thing is what we need in order for us to have all these bits. So we're going to import the router, a switch, a route, and a link. We're probably not going to use all of them. Let's see. So around our app, we're going to have our one router. This was my mistake from earlier today.
Is yarn React Router DOM?
Yeah, yarn add. Yep. So yarn, well, if you say yarn add, what that ends up doing, for those of you who want to know, view Explorer. That updates this file called package.json and adds a dependency to our project. So before we did this, we did not have this line. In dependencies, these are all the projects that your code depends on. So this says our project depends on React, React DOM, React Router DOM, and React scripts. And you know when you do yarn start, that's this. You know when you do yarn build, that's this. So if you wanted to add your own, right, yarn tacos, right, echo tacos, right, we should be able to now do yarn tacos, right? So package.json, echo just means, yeah, print. It's the shell equivalent of print, right? So this is where you define scripts. This is where you define the project dependencies all go in this package.json file. And yarn add, all it's really doing is looking up the latest version of React Router DOM and adding this line and running yarn install. That's all yarn add does. Like you could come into this file and add this line yourself, but you would not remember what the current version of React Router DOM is. You wouldn't know it's 4.3.1. Cool, so let's add our router in here. Right, as I mentioned, this is the thing that I forgot earlier. Oh, this made a self-closing tag. So here's our router. Inside of our router, we're going to use a switch. The reason why we use a switch is without the switch, router can render more than one component. So inside of a router, if you say route to here and route to somewhere else, if both of those things match, both of those components are going to be on the page. We just want one thing. We want our next set of routes to only match one option.
So switch means one or the other.
Yeah, just give me one, find me the first one that matches, just give me that one and be done. Without the switch around it, it will give you all of them that match. Which sometimes that's what you want, right? Hey, if I'm on this page, I want these 6 things. But here we just want to have either home or about or photos. So when we route to the path slash, we want the component to be home. And when we route to the path about, we want that component to be about. And when we route to the path photos, we want that component to be photos. And then we can get rid of these. So since our route here, like without anything, is the slash, we're at home. And if we add about, we don't get about. Why? Because that slash matches right here. Right? It's going to match up to an impartial that. If we want this to be only matched when we literally say exactly that, we have to say exact. So what we're saying here is, don't care if the route starts with that. I want you to only match exact. I think this will also match about XXXX. No, it doesn't. Does it match this? Yeah, it does match that. So just for the slash, we have to say exact so it doesn't match the slash and about. And if we say photos, right, we should end up in the photos. Let's add a header to the page that's going to have some links. Normally we would say something like this, right? This is home, and this is about, and this is photos. Let's put this header inside the router, right? Maybe in our, oops. Let's put a div inside of here. I'm going to show you one other cool thing in a minute. Cool. So here's our links at the top: home, about, photos. Right. So now if we click on about and we click on photos, we go where we're supposed to go. The deal though is, when we're using React Router, we really want to replace these with its helper called link, because that will make sure that other things that we need to work will work. So instead of just using a plain A, we're just going to convert these to links. So to convert them, we just say link to is the URL. We make this a link. Right. What you'll find is that A will work sometimes, but other times it'll break and not do what you expect.
Is link a tag in regular HTML?
No.
It's BJSX.
Yeah, it's a component that we're getting. It's a component that we're getting from React Router.
Okay.
Yeah, and what it generates is an A. When it generates, when we go and look, it's building an A.
Okay. So
right.
why does just a straight A tag?
The link will remember certain things about like browser history and some of those things that the link can do, and it just tells React that this is a link to an internally routed thing. And it will remember some things that are important for us later. The A will work, but when we get to more advanced things, we'll find that we just should have started with a link. Yeah. So normally where we would use an A for a thing that we route, like if we were going to link to Google, we would not use a link. We would still use an A. But if we're linking to a route inside of our own app, it's just better to use the link. Okay. So you know how I keep using these divs because I just need a container? It turns out that there's a component for it called a React fragment. And instead of using a div, I can use a React fragment, and it will work just as good. So if you're throwing a div in just to have a thing to put other things inside of, React fragment also works. So you know.
Shortcut to get the React or the router there.
Oh, there's no shortcut for it. You just got to copy pasta it. So I usually just copy it from somewhere else. There may be, for those who have React shortcuts running, maybe there is a shortcut for it. If you all want to check.
React fragment?
No, for this, like browser as router, switch route link, etc. So like here where I did a div, just add something, I could change this to a React fragment. Right. Yes. It's import, here I'll stick it in Slack too. So I'm trying to get in the habit now of using React fragment instead of just a plain old div. When I just need a thing to contain, hey, I need to return one element. So normally we would just use a div. I learned about React fragment, so I'm going to start using that. But I didn't want to show it to you until now. All right, so pretty simple. Right, we just have one router here that shows us different things: a photos page, an about page, and a home page. So just built in the app the things that I want on each of those pages. I pulled them into components. I reused those components on the page, and then I wrapped that in a router and a switch. And I said, hey, route when it's exactly slash, show me home. When it's exactly about, show me about. And when it's photos, show me photos. And now this will remember not only this, but also the browser history. So this wasn't possible before, right? We're not actually going to the URL and changing it, or really redirecting the page. Like the page is still running. We're not actually like reloading the page. We're just changing state, and React is re-rendering. So how does it put things in here? Some years ago, we got an interface for It's actually faster than reloading the page. So we got browser history manipulation as part of JavaScript. So your JavaScript can manipulate the browser history for its own page, and there's a JavaScript API for manipulating it. So if you call a history push state, pushes the given data onto the session history stack with a specified title, and it provided the URL. So from JavaScript, you can affect the browser history. And that's essentially what's going on here in our React app as we click on these things. We're not actually reloading the page. If we look at the network, right?
Pull up the actual page. It's changing the URL.
Say again?
Mine's not pulling up the actual page, but the URL is shaking.
What happened to me was...
The React fragment part of it?
No, this was just a div. It's just a div. Right. So you want to make sure that your links are inside of the router. So your router should be the top level thing. In fact, I think we could just do this, except we would lose our styling.
Can you put a class on there?
No. That's why you end up having. So you have this router and switch, and you have link tos here. And when you click on it, like here, it's changing the URL, but the page isn't changing. And you have these route exact path slash. What happens if you just type in that URL and press enter? Like if you go to photos and press enter, you can get nothing. Right. Look to see if you have any errors in your console, and we can work through those. I have some warnings, but not errors. Okay, I'll come take a look in a minute. Yeah, the images one. Don't worry about those. So what's actually happening here is React is managing where we are, and it's pushing fake history onto the history stack, right? Because if we look at the network, we're not actually going anywhere, so it's even faster than having to fetch another page. So
But
all
if you
this is
hit
happening.
back, will it take you?
It will. Look at my history. React app React.
Very cool.
Right. Now, if we had different titles on each of these pages, right, we would see the different header titles. Right.
Oh, you can have a different title each time.
Yes.
Wow.
Right. But you notice like nothing's happening on the network. This is all happening local in my browser. I could disconnect from the intertubes, right, and this would still work.
Because it's all loaded at once.
It's all loaded at once. Yep, and all that's happening is every time we navigate, the JavaScript is saying, hey, put another link on the stack of your history. And every time you go back, it's just popping those off, right? And it's managing all of that locally. So this is the idea of that like single page app. We never have to load another page from the interface, but we can actually keep track of where we are. So you'll notice some apps, like when you click on tabs, will manipulate the URL, right? So that when you reload the page, you stay on that tab. Or if you go to an app and like you configure your sidebar, or you navigate deep into the app, but you reload, and it keeps you on the same page.
It doesn't bring you back to the front of it.
Yeah. So that is either using the entire URL and hitting the back end again, or it's doing something like this, where it's maintaining its state, and it's using like a front end router to say, okay, yes, they went to my site /photos. I'm still going to load the app page, but when that app page loads, it goes, oh, they're on /photos, so I will render that part of the page. So this is, I think, a simpler example of what we were trying to do earlier. I just wanted to make sure we had one example in the videos for your notes when you go back to look at them later, especially when you go to work on tonight's homework. It's going to be more like this than it is the more complex octodex that we did.
I was going to say, this makes a hell of a lot more sense
Yeah.
this morning.
Yeah. So note for me, I'm going to start with this next time.
Okay.
Rather than like try and dive right into because part of the homework, if you go to like the advanced mode, will be more like that. But if you do the homework, this is kind of where you're going to start, something like this, because it's asking you to have like a photos page and then a link to a photo. We could dive down deeper into the photos page and have photos 1, photos 2, right? But what would happen in the photos page is we would have another switch here with more routes. So if I wanted to switch between these two images, right? What we might have here is maybe what we have is another. Maybe we have another thing called photo.js, right? And let's copy this whole thing. Photo.js, right? And that's just gonna render one picture. And then let's do this.
Was Route built by Instagram too?
No. React Router came later. It's a third party. It's a third party thing.
External from Facebook?
Yeah. Yeah, and even external from the core React team router. So it doesn't come from the core React team. So let's do this. Let's say let photo URL be blank, and then we're gonna do 2 different photo URLs. So here's one photo URL. It's this one, right? And what was the other photo URL? Nope, undo. Here's one photo URL, and then the other photo URL was back on the photos page, was this one. Okay. 916. So we'll say something like if this.props.photo is 1, then make the photo URL this. Otherwise, if this.props.photo is 2, make the photo this. And then here we'll say the image source is the photo URL. So if we wanted to drive this into more detail, here what we could do is, instead of having these actually be the images, we could make these a link to photos 1, and we could make this a link to photos 2. We could have it say 1, and this could say 2. Right? And we got to bring in the. Here now we need link. We need at least. We need at least. Like, we're also going to need switch and router and stuff. So I'll bring those right? So now the photo page has this 1 and 2, right? But nothing is happening. As we click on photos 1 and 2, nothing's happening. What we can do here is we can say, hey, let's put another switch here. And let's say when the route path is photos 1, then the component is photo. And when the route is photos 2, the component is photo. And let's import photo from photos. So this is getting a lot more complicated. Oh, photo from photo. Thank you. Not plural, singular. Did I break it? I've broken something. I can hear my fan spinning. We've opened this tab. Maybe. Come on, Chrome. Recognize that it's broken. Let us out. Nope. I don't know. I feel like it's in some kind of infinite loop. No, but there's a Chrome task manager, and then we can find the tab. Where is it? It's this one, right? There we go. Oh, snap. Let's go back to here. Home, about, photos. There we go. 1, 2. Right, but nothing's happening. So in our photo, we need to pass down a props. So what we can say here is we can make the component a function that returns a photo component whose photo is 1. And for this one, we can make it a little function instead and have this return a photo whose photo is 2. Now when we click on 1 or 2, we get the different images, right? So we have a set of ULs that have links, and then we say, hey, in this part of the page, determine which of these we're going to include. If the path is photos 1, I would like you to render whatever the result of this function is. Oh, okay, cool. I will just return photos with a prop of 1. And in this route, if it matches photos 2, I will render a component that's just photo and 2. Right? And then my photo, we'd probably have something larger logic than this, but we're just saying, hey, if the props you got was photo 1, this is your URL, and if it's photo 2, this is your URL. Right? And then we can have different photos here. What we learned earlier was, this is cool and all, but what we can do is we can just say, hey, let this be ID. Right? Switch route. Why is this complaining? Yeah. Right? And then what we have here is we're going to get the route. And here we can just say, hey, let this be the route, props, match, params, ID. No, this is a route match params ID, not props. Right? So if we take the route in, the route has a match. That match is going to be this entire object that represents this. Params are going to be anything that starts with an ID, and we can, sorry, with a colon, and we can just ask for the ID. Let's call it let's not call it ID. Let's call it the, what do we call it here? The photo. Params, which photo? Right, so we're going to pass the photo based on whatever comes into this. Right, and we get 1 and 2, except now this is a string. So here, this is photo 1 and photo 2 as strings. There's photo 1, photo 2, and photo 1. Right, now imagine if I was pulling these. Imagine if I was pulling these from a database or from an API. I wouldn't have to have this if then statement. I could say, hey, go to the API, fetch photo number 1. Go to the API, fetch photo number 2. All right, so if I say, because the match is always a string. So back in here, if I console log the route, let's see what we get. Console log the route. Thank you. You look at what's inside of here. Here's that route object. So it has a history. Like, hey, look, like this is the entire history of where we've been. We should be able to see that we have 7 history things. Somewhere in here we could see all those history bits. The location tells us where we are. The match is, hey, what did we match? Is it an exact match? What's the path? Photos : photo. What was the exact URL? Photos 2. And what were the params that we pulled out of that? So you see how the params here is photo 2 because we matched photos 2 to photos : photo. So this 2 became this parameter. And since it doesn't really know it's a number, we could have written the word TWO. It's always going to be a string. So when we pass that down into photo, we have to match against a string now. When I coded it by hand, I put the number 1 and the number 2. Right, so 1 and 2. If you put photos 3, right, there's nothing here because nothing matched here on our photo component. Right. What we can do is we could say photo URL b. Let's go find a funny 404 GIF. What's the one with the construction? Okay. What's the old? Where's the old one from the internet? And that's not what I want. That's not what I want. Under construction 1990s GIF. Exactly. This is what we want. Right. Yeah. So now, like, we do 1 or 2 or 2, right? But we put in like, right. Then we're getting this photo URL because none of these matched, right? So we set the photo URL to this funny GIF, but if it's a 1 or a 2, then we put the correct URL in, right? So this is just the idea of React Router saying, hey, at this top level inside of this router, and it's pretty common to have the router kind of surround your entire app. If you match / show the home component, home. If we match about, show inside of here, show the about component. If you match photos, show the photos component. But the photos component can also have its own switch. And let's get rid of these, right? And say, hey, if the route matches / photos, because this is where we are, and then a photo param, I want you to give me a photo component, but tell it its photo is what came from the route match params. Then the photo can say, cool, if that's a 1 or a 2, I'll show this image, otherwise I'll show this garbage. And then we just use links to generate links around, just like we did here on the app. We use these links. We can also have links down here to something deeper in the app, 1 and 2. or, oops, Vim Adventures, construction GIF, or 99. This gives us this. All right. This is kind of the core basics of React Router. As we saw earlier, like it can get pretty complex. And if you'll start noticing in your React view now, let's make it smaller. Right. What was once a little simpler, now we have a browser router with a router, and then links, and we have a switch with a route and a thing, and then this has got down here a switch and a route and a thing. Remember when we went to go look at like Facebook and we're like, oh my god, look how many levels deep this React stuff is? This is why. Right, because we're using something like router to nest all of these things. Right, here we are. How many levels deep are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 levels deep in our stuff, right? Just to get this ability to have something here routed and then have this kind of capability, right? So React Router is awesome, but also kind of confusing. So that's why tonight's homework is good. Oh, has this been pushed? Let's go take a look at the homework here.
I have a question about styling. To style the links, is it just the same CSS?
Yeah. We may cover it tomorrow, or I may ask Jason to cover it with you all next week. Is what we want to start doing is, if you'll notice here when we imported the app, we have this app.css. We're going to start using the individual component styles to style a component, so that we can get styles that are separate from. Has everybody getting like more and more phone spam these days? Like I'm getting like 12 calls a day. Like spam.
I get it from like the same exact area code.
Yes, that's what they do now. And then they also try and trick you, like not only your area code, but the first 3 digits of your phone number.
Yeah, those are the two.
That's an indication like I'm not answering that phone.
Sometimes I'll answer and it's just nothing.
Yeah, because they're waiting for you to speak. Here's another thing. If you ever get one of these like marketing calls,
Hey,
and you
I have a order my house in your neighborhood.
yeah, or if you say the word yes,
Yeah,
don't. Because they will record that as you agreeing to something like, well, Matt said yes when I asked him if he wanted to sign up for Verizon for 3 years. And they just record you saying the word yes, and like, well, that's your voice.
Elephant.
Yeah, just don't say anything. I just hang up.
Does somebody want to say yes?
Yeah,
I don't know, answer phone calls and who knows work.
yeah,
I'm expecting a call.
yeah. So this is your homework tonight. We're going to get to know React Router by building a small photo gallery. So here's the JSON data that you're going to use. You can either put this in a file and import it like we did ages ago, or just define that into your state. This is something like the result of what we're looking for. So have your photos here.
If we're not doing CSS for each individual file, this is tricky, right? Because the pictures need to be bigger on the next page.
Yes.
So we just have to do class names.
Class names. Yeah. If we were doing component level styling, you would just say images are this, and it would know, oh, I'm on this component, so images mean this.
Well, that's what's crazy too, because the first page, the panda bears and miniatures need to be links. So that's why.
Yeah. Yeah. For now, just work in index CSS and style things like you're used to, and throw class names on things. Either tomorrow or like Monday or Tuesday next week, we normally go over component styling. Right. So here's our home page. Right, if we click on a pandas, we should see pandas, and if we click on miniature painting, we see miniature painting. Right, if we go back and look at the data, right, we have pandas. Let's grab the JSON and view it in something better. He does. Let's just make sure it's formatted nice. I think he's formatted it nice. Yeah. So here's our object. We've got pandas and we've got miniatures are our 2 objects. And pandas have 2 photos and miniatures has 2 photos. That's how he's getting this. Right? Pandas, if we click on pandas, we have 2. And if we have miniature painting, we have 2. See if you can generate it from the data, because I think he's got the descriptions in here, right? Title is panda bears. Title is panda bears. The description is pandas are bears native to South America and China, South Central China, right? So this should be coming from the data, right? So you should eventually be able to replace this with your own gallery images. But start with what this is, right? Same thing. Start at the beginning, break it down. Here the example is you should have 4 components, probably something like an app, a category list, a photo list, and a photo detail. Right? On the home page, your category list should render the title of each category and link using the key. For example, panda bear should link to pandas. Right? That's coming from this data. Right? So this pandas is determining that URL, so you're probably going to need a route and a switch and some params to handle that. And then render each photo in a given category on the photo list page with a thumbnail sized version. And then finally render a large version of the photo on the photos detail page. Right? So if I was working on this, I would try and start with this and have this page render the different categories. Get that thing. Then see if you can generate these links, right, to /pandas, like /category, right, /:category, and see if you can get this to render. And work on this level. Can I get these to render? Then worry about, okay, well, can I click on this and then click on the individual? Right, so try and work on it on levels. Right, get the top level working, generating these dynamically. Then say, okay, well, can I turn this into a link, a React router link to whatever the name of the category is, and render this. The idea is this should be the same component as if we do miniatures, but it should be determining what to render by pulling this out of that route. Kind of like in here, in our photos, right? Kind of like how we did here, where we did the individual. So this would be like /categories, right? And then finally, there's another level where it's miniatures and the index. So this is the first miniature. This is the second miniature, right? So this is another level of routing underneath. Start with just this. Just see if you can get this page to generate these dynamically. Then add route to your app and see if you can capture the category and render all the photos in that category. Once you get that working for both, right, both categories, then worry about, can I click on the next level down? And we've given you some hints here that the components are apps, categories list. So this is our app, right? This is our categories list. Sorry, this is our categories list here. This is our photos list. And then finally, this is our photo detail, right? So just start at the top and work your way down, right? And if you get stuck, then cool, that's where you got to, or ask questions. But I think you start at the very top, kind of like we did this here, follow this example from reviewer 2. I think that'll be much easier for y'all to follow. Cool? Cool. Yes, I will come take a look and see why yours is not working now.